You are not failing from lack of motivation, but from lack of consistency in your own choices. You keep waiting for inner fire, while your life quietly weakens through repeated delay and unexamined decisions that you already know are not guided by reason. You feel it in the moments when you avoid what matters, when you choose comfort over duty, when your mind argues against what you clearly know is right. This is not confusion from the world, but disorder within judgment that has gone uncorrected for too long. If you want to change this, stay here and learn how a disciplined mind is built through steady return to virtue in ordinary daily action. Subscribe and walk this path with us, not as entertainment, but as a practice of examining your thoughts and strengthening your character one day at a time. Number 1. Practice daily discipline before waiting for passing motivation always. You keep waiting for the day when you will feel ready. You keep telling yourself that when the mood rises, your life will begin. But the mood does not rule the life of a disciplined person. Feeling is not a command. Hunger is not a command. Fear is not a command. Laziness is not a command. Desire is not a command. These things move through the mind like weather moves through the sky. They come and they leave. If you build your life on them, your life will be as unstable as they are. So look at yourself clearly. How many plans have you made only to abandon them when the first difficulty appeared? How many good intentions have you praised while doing nothing? How many mornings have begun with pride and ended with excuses? Be honest. The problem is not that you lack inspiration. The problem is that you have made inspiration your master. A free person does not wait for permission from changing feelings. A free person acts from reason. A free person knows what is good and does it because it is good. That is where your work begins. The day does not ask whether you feel strong. It asks whether you will do what is right. That is the whole matter. You rise. You wash, you breathe, you make your bed if that is part of your discipline. You sit in stillness for a short time and decide what belongs to this day. You choose one task that your weaker self would avoid, and you begin it at once, not after a scroll through your phone, not after one more cup of coffee, not after the mood improves. At once. The first battle is not outside you. It is in the moment before action, when the mind starts negotiating. It says later. It says tomorrow. It says when you feel better. That voice is not wisdom. It is habit speaking in the costume of reason. Tear off the costume. See it for what it is. The mind that always delays is the mind that slowly loses itself. A person who depends on motivation has already admitted defeat. Why? Because motivation is not stable. It rises with novelty and disappears when the work becomes plain. It is lively when the task is easy and silent when the task demands endurance. It cannot be trusted as the ruler of a life. The ruler must be reason. Reason is steady. Reason can look at a hard duty and still say yes. Reason can look at boredom and still say yes. Reason can look at discomfort and still say yes. Reason does not ask whether the body is eager. It asks whether the action is right. When you understand this, you stop living like a servant to passing feelings. You become a student of your own mind and a guard at the gate of your choices. That guard must never sleep. So begin with this truth. Your life will not change through rare acts of excitement. It will change through repeated acts of discipline. A small action done every day is stronger than a grand intention spoken once. The body learns by repetition. The mind also learns by repetition. Each time you obey a worthy decision, you weaken the grip of hesitation. Each time you stop yourself from obeying impulse, you make the soul more capable of command. This is how character is formed, not by thought alone, not by wishing, by doing, by returning, by doing again when no one sees, by doing when the reward is not immediate, by doing when the inner voice complains. This is the work that makes a human being firm. Do not say that the task is too small to matter. Small actions reveal the truth of the soul. A man who cannot begin a single useful task without drama will not become stable in a larger one. A woman who needs constant emotional lift before acting will remain vulnerable to every change in mood. The test is always simple. Can you begin now? Can you continue when it is dull? Can you finish without applause? Can you return after failure without self-hatred? This is not punishment. This is training. A wrestler does not become strong by talking about strength. He becomes strong by meeting resistance again and again. You too are in training. The resistance is not an accident. It is the place where your character is built. Many people call themselves unmotivated when they are simply undisciplined. That is not cruelty. It is clarity. A person may be tired, wounded, overwhelmed, or grieving, and still not be undisciplined. But if the pattern is always surrender to comfort, then the issue is not lack of feeling. It is lack of command over the self. The soul that cannot lead itself is in danger of being ruled by appetite, fear, and distraction. That soul is not free. It is dragged. It follows every signal from the outside world and every impulse from within. That is a poor way to live. You were not born to be dragged. You were born to govern what is in your power. Your judgments are in your power. Your choices are in your power. Your attention is in your power. Your response is in your power. Guard these well. Start your day by separating what is yours from what is not. The hour of awakening is the right time for this. Ask yourself what lies within your power today, not whether others will praise you, not whether the outcome will be immediate, not whether the world will cooperate. Those things are not yours. What is yours is whether you will begin, whether you will tell the truth, whether you will act without complaint, whether you will refuse to be ruled by the first resistance, whether you will remain faithful to what reason has shown you. Write this down if needed. Say it plainly. Today I will do the work before I seek comfort. Today I will obey reason before I obey feeling. Today I will act because it is right. This is not a poem. It is a command. Then choose one duty and carry it out without negotiation. The mind likes to make life large and vague because vague life is easier to avoid. So narrow it. One call, one page, one workout, one act of honesty, one difficult conversation, one period of focused labor, 1 hour without distraction. Do not ask for a perfect day. Ask for the first right act. Begin with that. Once begun, continue. Once continued, protect your attention. The mind that wanders is a mind that leaks strength. Every unnecessary glance at entertainment weakens the capacity to endure plain duty. Every surrender to instant pleasure teaches the mind that effort is optional. You must reverse that lesson. You must teach the mind that duty comes first. There is no shame in feeling resistance. Resistance is common. What matters is what you do with it. When you feel the urge to leave the task, do not obey instantly. Stop. Breathe. Name the impulse. This is impatience. This is fear of effort. This is desire for ease. Naming the impulse creates distance from it. Then ask whether the impulse serves your reason or merely your comfort. It will usually serve comfort. Comfort is not evil, but it is a poor master. Comfort becomes a tyrant when it determines action. Discipline says no to the tyrant. Discipline does not hate comfort. It places comfort in its proper place. The body may be eased later. The soul must be led now. You will sometimes fail. Do not turn failure into identity. A slip is not the same as surrender. What matters is whether you return. The mind that says, "I failed once, so I am no good," is a dishonest mind. It uses one event to destroy courage. Reject that lie. Say instead that you missed the mark and will correct the aim. Then do it. This is how strength grows, not through perfect records, through honest correction. A disciplined person is not one who never falls. It is one who refuses to build a home inside the fall. Rise, correct, return. Begin again without drama. The ability to restart without self-pity is a kind of freedom. There is a harshness in truth that many avoid because it exposes delay. But the truth is your ally. It shows where you are weak so you can become stronger. When you tell yourself that you are waiting for inspiration, the truth answers that you are waiting for a feeling to give orders to your reason. That arrangement is upside down. Feelings should be observed, not obeyed. They inform, they do not command. A person who understands this stops demanding that life feel easy before living it well. He or she knows that hardship is normal and that virtue is possible within hardship. That knowledge steadies the mind. It prevents complaint. It makes the day clearer. It removes the childish hope that life should first become agreeable before character is required. Look also at the price of inconsistency. Every time you begin and stop, you teach yourself that your word is weak. Every promise broken in private injures trust in the self. Every task abandoned before completion leaves behind a stain of doubt. This is why so many people feel divided within. They say one thing and do another. They admire discipline but live by impulse. They praise strength but protect comfort. They want respect from others while ignoring the commands of reason inside themselves. That divide creates inner unrest. To heal it, your actions must become aligned with your judgment, not occasionally, repeatedly. This alignment is called character. It is not born in a single moment of greatness. It is built in ordinary moments when no one is watching. Do not wait for the grand turning point. The grand turning point is often a fantasy that keeps the present excuse alive. Life changes through small decisions repeated with seriousness. Wake at the same hour, begin the same practice, return to the same standard, keep the same boundary, refuse the same temptation. This repetition is not dull, it is noble. It is the work of becoming reliable to yourself. A person who is reliable to himself is difficult to break. He is not carried away by praise. He is not collapsed by insult. He is not lifted into vanity by success or thrown into despair by delay. He stands where reason stands. That is a stable life. You must learn to endure the plainness of disciplined living. Many seek excitement because they fear the silence in which truth becomes audible. A distracted life hides weakness. The disciplined life reveals it. That is why many avoid discipline. It leaves no room for self-deception. When you sit with your work, without entertainment, without constant interruption, you meet the real condition of your mind. At first, that meeting may be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort can be a teacher when met with courage. It shows where you have become dependent. It shows where you have been lazy. It shows where you have demanded that the world entertain you before you obey your duty. The remedy is not to flee the discomfort. The remedy is to remain until the mind becomes steady. Set a time each morning for quiet examination, not long. Long is not always better. Truth is better. Ask what virtue this day requires. Ask where you are likely to be weak. Ask what you will do when the phone distracts you. Ask what you will do when resentment rises. Ask what you will do when work feels heavy. Do not leave the answers vague. Decide in advance. The mind is weaker when surprised. A prepared mind is harder to shake. This is why practice matters. The person who has already reflected on the day is less likely to be carried away by the first irritation. The inner law has already been written. The work is to obey it. When the hour of action comes, begin without drama. Do not negotiate with yourself in the doorway of the task. The longer you stand there, the more the mind invents reasons to turn away. Move, sit down, open the work, speak the truth, start the exercise, make the call, read the page, clean the room, finish the assignment. The body often follows when the command is clear. Many delays are not caused by deep obstacles, they are caused by allowing the self to stand unchallenged at the threshold. You must become the one who interrupts hesitation. That interruption is an act of self-respect. It says your higher judgment matters more than your lower impulse. There is a simple law here. The more you obey a wise action, the easier obedience becomes. The more you indulge delay, the easier delay becomes. The soul is shaped by what it repeats. This is why you cannot remain casual about small habits. Small habits are not small in effect. They are the steady rain that fills the ground. You become what you repeatedly choose. Choose carelessly and you become scattered. Choose with discipline and you become ordered. An ordered soul does not demand perfect conditions. It brings order into the condition it meets. That is power. Not control over the world, control over the self. Do not confuse self-command with self-cruelty. The point is not to punish yourself for weakness. The point is to train yourself toward freedom. A strict inner life is not a joyless life. It is a clear life. It is a life without the constant noise of inner bargaining. You are tired because the mind keeps arguing with itself. One part wants ease, another part wants growth, another part wants approval, another part wants escape. Let reason speak and settle the matter. What is required now? What is in my power now? What action matches virtue now? When reason answers, follow it. Peace grows where inner civil war ends. You may ask how to continue when the task becomes tedious. The answer is to remember that boredom is not harm. Boredom is often the mind refusing to receive what is simply useful. The mind that has been spoiled by constant stimulation rejects ordinary effort. Do not obey that spoiled mind. Stay with the task. Let boredom pass without turning it into a reason for escape. In time, the mind learns that it does not need novelty in order to act well. That is a precious lesson. Many lives are wasted not through vice alone, but through inability to remain with the plain work that builds a stable future. You should also make room for voluntary discomfort. Not all hardship should be avoided. Some hardship should be chosen so that the soul becomes less fragile. Take a walk without comfort. Delay a pleasure. Eat more plainly on purpose. Work when you would rather rest. Sit in silence when you would rather be entertained. These acts teach the body that pleasure is not the ruler. They teach the mind that inconvenience is not danger. A person who has practiced discomfort is less shaken by unexpected loss, delay, or strain. This practice is not about proving toughness. It is about removing dependence. Dependence makes a person small. Freedom begins when comfort no longer commands. Each evening, judge your day with honesty. Do not lie to yourself at night when no one else is listening. Ask where you acted well. Ask where you yielded. Ask where you delayed. Ask where you spoke without thought. Ask where you chose attention over distraction. Ask what provoked you and why. Do not use the review to shame yourself. Use it to correct yourself. The purpose is improvement, not theater. A soul that examines itself daily becomes harder to deceive. It learns patterns. It sees the weak point before it becomes a habit. This evening practice is one of the finest tools for discipline because it keeps the mind awake to itself. If you missed your standard today, do not make tomorrow a fantasy of revenge against the past. Make tomorrow a return to order. Revenge is for the insulted self, not the disciplined self. The disciplined self seeks repair. It says, I know where I weakened. I know what must be done. I will do it. No speech is needed beyond that. The more honest you are in the evening, the less theatrical your morning will become. You will stop pretending that change requires a sudden transformation. Change requires truth repeated. It requires deliberate effort. It requires stubborn fidelity to what is right. You must also understand that consistency is not merely a habit, it is a moral choice. To be consistent is to be trustworthy to your own judgment. It is to say that your standards are not ornamental, they govern. If you decide that health matters, then act accordingly. If you decide that learning matters, then sit with the book. If you decide that your work matters, then do it well. If you decide that your word matters, then keep it. If you decide that your mind matters, then refuse to feed it nonsense all day. A person without consistency is divided from himself. A person with consistency becomes integrated. That unity of soul is a kind of strength no noise can easily shake. The world will not always reward your discipline quickly. Learn to live without quick reward. That is part of the training. Many abandon worthy efforts because they expect immediate proof that they are improving. But virtue does not require applause. Duty does not wait for visible results to become real. Sometimes the only reward available is the knowledge that you acted well. That knowledge should be enough. In fact, it is the only reward that cannot be taken from you. External reward may come and go. Reputation may rise and fall. Circumstances may shift without warning. But the integrity gained from faithful action belongs to the soul alone. Hold to that. When you feel the old urge to quit, ask a better question. Not whether quitting would feel easier. It would. Not whether rest would feel nicer. It would. Ask whether quitting would make you more just, more steady, more self-controlled, more truthful. It will not. Therefore, do not quit. That is the clean answer. The mind often tries to use comfort as a guide, but comfort is not a measure of goodness. Many things that are comfortable are harmful. Many things that are difficult are beneficial. This is simple once you stop lying to yourself. The hard path is often the one that preserves dignity. Every day offers the same test in different clothes. Will you act from reason or from impulse? Will you let mood lead or will you lead mood? Will you let the task command your attention or will you scatter it? Will you allow weakness to write your schedule or will you do what must be done? This test appears in work, in speech, in how you react to insult, in how you rise when you do not feel like rising, in how you remain steady when no one praises you. There is no separate spiritual life apart from these moments. The spiritual life is the way you handle the moments. It is the shape of your daily obedience to what is right. Speak less about your goals and show more by your habits. Words are easy. Habits reveal truth. A person may say he wants to improve while never altering his mornings, his evenings, his focus, or his self-restraint. That person is not serious. Seriousness is visible. It is visible in how one spends the first hour of the day. It is visible in what one refuses. It is visible in the standards one keeps when tired. It is visible in whether one returns after failure or disappears into excuses. Let your life become evidence. Evidence does not need decoration. And when the mind says that you have been at this too long and deserve release from the discipline, answer it with firmness. You do not deserve release from what makes you better. You deserve the peace that comes from order. You deserve the strength that comes from fidelity. You deserve the clarity that comes from self-mastery. None of these are given by indulgence. They are earned through repeated obedience to reason. This is the dignity of a human being, not to chase every urge, but to choose what is worthy and to remain with it. That choice is available now. It has always been available. Do not be surprised that the mind resists what would save it. A disordered mind fears order because order removes excuses. It fears consistency because consistency reveals the truth of its priorities. It fears discipline because discipline ends the fantasy that change can come without effort. So the mind complains, it becomes dramatic, it invents fatigue, it reaches for distraction, it promises to improve tomorrow. Do not be taken in by these performances, see them clearly, then return to the work. This is how you become sober in the soul. Sober people do not chase illusions. They do what is necessary. Your life is being shaped now by what you repeat. There is no neutral repetition. Every repeated excuse makes surrender easier. Every repeated act of discipline makes strength easier. You are laying down a path inside yourself. One path leads to dependence on mood and impulse. The other leads to reliability, peace, and dignity. Choose the second path today, not as a grand declaration, but as a practical act. Sit down and do the work. Turn away from the distraction. Begin before the feeling arrives. Continue after the feeling leaves. This is what makes a person strong in the manner that matters. Do not think you need a better personality before you can live well. You need better practices. The soul becomes more capable through practice. The same person who once hesitated can become steady. The same person who once avoided can become direct. The same person who once lived by moods can become governed by reason. But this does not happen by self-admiration. It happens by action. The person you are becoming is waiting on the other side of repeated discipline. Go there by choice. At the end of the day, the question is not whether you felt motivated. The question is whether you were faithful. Did you do what you said? Did you begin when it was time? Did you remain when it became difficult? Did you return when you drifted? Did you speak to yourself honestly? Did you keep your attention where it belonged? These are the questions that matter. They do not flatter, they instruct. Let them follow you into tomorrow. Let them stand at the door when you wake. Let them cut through every excuse that would seduce you back into delay. Life is brief. Not in the sentimental way that weakens resolve, but in the plain way that should sharpen it. The days pass whether you are disciplined or not. The hour will not wait while you negotiate with your mood. So stop bargaining with what is passing. Build what is lasting. Build it with daily obedience. Build it with clear judgment. Build it with courage in small things. Build it by beginning before you feel like it. Build it by continuing when the mind complains. Build it by choosing reason over impulse again and again until choice becomes character. This is the secret you have been seeking, not a sudden surge of enthusiasm, not a feeling that arrives from nowhere and carries you upward. The secret is steadiness. The secret is daily discipline. The secret is doing what is right when it is plain and when it is hard. The secret is learning that your freedom does not depend on your mood. It depends on your governance of yourself. Hold that line. Guard it fiercely. Return to it every morning. Review it every night. And do not waste another day asking permission from feelings that were never meant to rule you. Number 2. Govern every choice through reason instead of changing feelings. Most people believe they are making decisions. They are not. They are being carried from one reaction to the next without ever stopping to ask who is truly in command. A single careless word from another person changes the direction of their day. A delayed message fills their mind with suspicion. A small inconvenience becomes a reason to complain. An unexpected success fills them with pride. An unexpected failure fills them with despair. They call this living, but it is only drifting. Their mind is like a ship that follows every changing wind because it has never learned to hold a steady course. If this describes your own life, then do not defend yourself against the truth. Welcome it. A person cannot correct what they refuse to see. Your freedom begins the moment you admit that many of your choices have not been governed by reason, but by feelings that arrived without invitation and left without permission. Ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time you paused before responding to disappointment? When did you last examine your first judgment before speaking it aloud? How often have you accepted every thought that entered your mind as though it deserved your trust? This is where suffering quietly grows. The world presents an event, and before the event has even settled, your judgment has already declared it terrible, unfair, insulting, or hopeless. Yet the event itself has not forced that judgment upon you. Your own mind has done so. The greatest mistake is believing that the first opinion inside your head is always true. The disciplined soul never grants immediate authority to its first impression. It questions it. It tests it. It asks whether reason agrees before allowing it to become action. You have likely spent years strengthening your habits without ever strengthening your judgment. You have learnt routines for work, methods for earning money, and countless practical skills, yet perhaps you have neglected the one discipline that determines the quality of every other part of life: the discipline of choosing how to think. Without this discipline, knowledge becomes pride, success becomes anxiety, failure becomes despair, and relationships become fragile because every emotion demands immediate obedience. A person may appear capable in the eyes of others while remaining completely governed by an undisciplined inner life. Such a person possesses many abilities but lacks mastery over the one thing that directs them all. Reason does not erase emotion. It gives emotion its proper place. Fear may appear, anger may arise, excitement may arrive without warning. None of these are crimes against your character. They become dangerous only when they seize command before reason has spoken. There is a profound difference between experiencing an emotion and allowing it to govern your conduct. You cannot prevent every feeling from entering your mind, but you can refuse to hand it authority over your choices. This refusal is not coldness, it is wisdom. It protects your dignity from becoming the servant of passing emotional weather. Notice what happens during an ordinary disagreement. Someone criticizes you. Before you have examined whether the criticism contains truth, your pride demands defense. Words leave your mouth before understanding has entered your mind. The conversation becomes a contest rather than a search for what is right. Hours later you regret what you said, yet the damage has already been done. The injury was not created by the criticism itself. It began when feeling outran judgment. Had reason remained in command, the same moment could have become an opportunity for learning instead of conflict. This is why your first discipline each morning should not concern your schedule. It should concern your mind. Before the demands of the day arrive, sit quietly for a few moments. Ask yourself what kinds of events you may encounter. You may meet impatience. You may meet misunderstanding. You may meet praise that tempts your vanity or criticism that challenges your pride. None of these should surprise you. Prepare your judgment before they appear. Decide that whatever enters your day, your response will not be purchased by impulse. Your response will belong to reason alone. This simple preparation quietly strengthens the mind before the world begins testing it. As you move through the day, practice separating the event from the story your mind immediately creates about it. The event is simple. A meeting was cancelled. A friend did not reply. A mistake was made. The story begins afterward. The mind declares that you have been rejected, disrespected, or defeated. Often that story has little connection with reality. It exists only because habit has learned to interpret uncertainty as danger. Stop accepting these stories without examination. Ask what you truly know. Ask what remains unknown. Ask whether your judgment rests upon evidence or assumption. Many unnecessary burdens disappear the moment honest questioning replaces automatic belief. There is another trap that quietly weakens judgment. You begin measuring your peace according to outcomes outside your authority. You tell yourself that you will remain calm only if people agree with you, only if your plans succeed, only if circumstances unfold exactly as expected. In doing so, you hand your inner life to conditions you cannot command. Every disappointment then becomes a personal crisis because your peace depends upon events rather than character. This is a dangerous bargain. The wiser path is to anchor satisfaction in the quality of your own choices. Whether success follows immediately is never fully yours to determine. Whether you act with integrity always is. You may spend years trying to arrange the world while neglecting to arrange your own judgments. Yet no amount of external order can compensate for internal confusion. A perfectly planned day can still become miserable if your thinking remains careless. A difficult day can remain peaceful if your judgment remains disciplined. The condition of your mind shapes the meaning of every circumstance you encounter. This is why the greatest labor is not managing the world. It is governing yourself. Train yourself to delay agreement with every strong emotion. Whenever anger rises, do not immediately ask how to express it. Ask whether it deserves expression at all. Whenever fear appears, do not instantly obey its warning. Ask whether it speaks from reality or imagination. Whenever pleasure invites you toward comfort instead of duty, ask whether following it strengthens your character or weakens it. This habit of questioning transforms the mind from a prisoner of impulse into an examiner of impressions. Little by little, you stop reacting automatically and begin living deliberately. Many people believe self-control requires extraordinary strength. More often, it requires ordinary attention. You lose command because your awareness disappears. The feeling arrives, and before you notice it, words have already been spoken, decisions have already been made, and opportunities have already been lost. Attention interrupts this pattern. The moment you become aware of your own thinking, you create space between impression and response. Within that space lives your freedom. It may last only a few seconds, yet those few seconds are enough to preserve your dignity. Do not seek perfection in this practice. Seek honesty. There will be moments when impatience escapes before you recognize it. There will be days when anxiety clouds your judgment or irritation narrows your vision. These moments are not reasons to abandon the discipline. They are opportunities to strengthen it. Every mistake reveals where further training is needed. Every failure becomes instruction if pride does not prevent learning. The undisciplined person hides from error. The disciplined person studies it without resentment. During the middle of your day, pause for a brief examination. Ask yourself whether reason still occupies the highest place in your mind. Have your conversations reflected careful judgment or emotional haste? Have you protected your attention, or have distractions quietly scattered it? Have you complained about circumstances that never belonged to your control? These questions return your mind to its proper center before an entire day disappears into unconscious habit. Such pauses require only minutes, yet they prevent countless unnecessary regrets. Your relationships also reveal whether reason governs your choices. If your peace depends upon another person's approval, then your judgment has surrendered its independence. If every disagreement feels like an attack upon your worth, then your thinking has confused opinion with truth. You cannot demand that others always understand you, praise you, or treat you perfectly. What remains yours is the manner in which you meet their conduct. Patience, fairness, honesty, and restraint belong entirely within your reach. Practice these consistently, not because others deserve perfection from you, but because your own character deserves consistency. Do not mistake emotional intensity for moral certainty. Strong feelings often persuade people that they must be correct simply because they feel deeply, yet intensity proves nothing. Anger can be powerful and still mistaken. Fear can feel convincing and still be false. Excitement can appear irresistible and still lead toward foolishness. Reason alone examines whether an impulse deserves obedience. The disciplined mind refuses to crown emotion as judge simply because it speaks loudly. One of the greatest acts of inner freedom is learning to leave certain thoughts unanswered. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every worry deserves your imagination. Not every desire deserves satisfaction. Thoughts enter the mind continually, but they are visitors rather than rulers. You decide which ones remain. Each unnecessary argument you refuse to continue inside your own head strengthens the quiet authority of reason. As evening approaches, return to yourself before sleep. Review the day without self-pity and without self-praise. Ask where feeling overruled judgment. Ask where reason quietly guided your conduct despite difficulty. Observe these moments carefully. Do not distort them through shame or vanity. Truth alone improves character. If you defended your pride unnecessarily, admit it. If you remained patient where you once would have reacted, acknowledge that progress with gratitude rather than arrogance. Honest examination plants the seed for wiser choices tomorrow. Remember that governing your choices through reason is not a single achievement. It is a lifelong discipline renewed each morning and tested in countless ordinary moments. Every conversation offers another opportunity to choose wisdom instead of impulse. Every disappointment invites you to separate fact from judgment. Every success challenges you to remain humble rather than intoxicated by praise. Every temptation asks whether comfort has become more important than character. Life itself becomes the training ground where reason is strengthened through repeated use. There will never come a day when you no longer need this discipline. The mind must be guided continually because impressions never cease. Yet, this should encourage you rather than discourage you. Every new day provides another chance to exercise the highest part of yourself. Every thoughtful response replaces an old habit with a better one. Every examined judgment brings greater clarity. Gradually, you become someone whose peace cannot be purchased by praise or stolen by criticism because your inner government no longer depends upon the shifting emotions of the moment. When you leave this moment, do not carry away admiration for these ideas alone. Carry away practice. Tomorrow morning, prepare your judgment before the world reaches for your attention. Throughout the day, examine each strong impression before accepting it as truth. Separate what belongs to your own character from everything that lies beyond your authority. In the evening, review your conduct with complete honesty. Continue this discipline patiently. Over time, you will discover that the greatest victory was never over other people, difficult circumstances, or uncertain fortune. It was over the careless judgments that once ruled your own mind. Only then will your choices belong to reason rather than changing feelings, and only then will your life begin to reflect the steady freedom that disciplined thought alone can create. Number 3. Repeat worthy actions until virtue becomes your steady character. You are not changed by the good thought that briefly visits you. You are changed by the good act that you repeat until it no longer feels foreign. That is the hard and honest truth. Many people admire virtue from a distance and then return to the same habits that weaken them. They praise discipline while surrendering to comfort. They praise truth while hiding from themselves. They praise courage while shrinking from effort. The mind enjoys the image of goodness more than the labor of becoming good. This is why so many remain divided within. They know what is right in flashes, but they do not repeat it until it becomes their character. And without repetition, nothing solid is built. Without repetition, there is only intention floating above a life that still belongs to impulse. Look closely at your own days. What do you repeat? What do you return to when no one is watching? What do you practice when the body resists and the mood turns dull? Your life is not shaped by the rare moment of clarity that impresses you for an hour. It is shaped by the ordinary acts you keep choosing, the words you speak when irritated, the way you respond when overlooked, the way you handle delay, the way you begin your morning, the way you review your evening, the way you treat the weak point in yourself, that keeps asking for indulgence. These repeated choices do not merely describe you, they build you. They carve the soul into a form. That form will either serve reason or serve habit. There is no third way. This is why virtue must be trained like any other craft. No one becomes skilled by admiring the skill. No one becomes strong by wishing to be strong. No one becomes trustworthy by hoping to be trustworthy. The hand learns through use. The eye learns through attention. The mind learns through judgment. The character learns through repeated action. A single generous act does not make a person just. A single moment of patience does not make a person steady. A single refusal of temptation does not make a person free. The soul is instructed by what it practices again and again. The question is not whether you have had noble thoughts. The question is whether you have made noble actions your daily habit. Most suffering comes from a soul that is not trained to remain faithful to what it knows. You already sense this in yourself. You know when a complaint is unnecessary, yet you make it. You know when anger will only poison the moment, yet you indulge it. You know when a task should be started, yet you delay it in the hope that some better state of feeling will appear. You know that much of what you fear does not belong to your control, yet you continue to attach your peace to it. This gap between knowledge and conduct is where inner disorder lives. And that gap is closed only by repetition, not the repetition of empty motions, but the repetition of worthy actions until they become familiar, then natural, then stable. Begin by making the first hour of the day answerable to reason. Do not wake and immediately surrender your attention to noise, messages, and the drift of other people's demands. Rise and collect yourself. Before you meet the world, meet your own mind. Ask what sort of person you intend to be today, not what you intend to obtain, not what you intend to display. What sort of person? The distinction matters. You may lose an opportunity and remain honorable. You may miss praise and remain just. You may face irritation and remain calm. You may be denied comfort and still remain faithful to your task. The true question is whether your choices today will reflect virtue or merely convenience. Then choose one worthy action that you will repeat no matter how minor it appears. Speak truthfully in one difficult moment. Complete one necessary task without complaint. Hold your tongue where gossip tempts you. Listen without preparing your reply. Return to your work without reaching for distraction. Sit in silence for a few minutes and watch the mind reveal its habits. These actions may look small to a careless observer, but they are not small in the eyes of the soul. Every repeated act is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you repeat restraint, restraint becomes less foreign. When you repeat honesty, truth becomes easier to carry. When you repeat duty, duty becomes less heavy. The soul grows familiar with what it often does. Do not be deceived by the longing for sudden transformation. Sudden change is often admired because it spares the self from effort. Yet a life built on suddenness is easily broken. The mind that waits for a dramatic shift usually excuses itself from the slow work that real change requires. But character is not struck into existence by one intense moment. It is forged by countless ordinary moments in which you do what your best judgment requires, even when nothing in you feels eager to do it. This is the path of inner stability. It is plain, it is demanding, it gives no applause. It asks only that you become reliable to yourself. To repeat worthy actions until virtue becomes your character means that you no longer rely on mood to carry you. Mood is useful as a signal, not as a sovereign. Some days the body is tired. Some days the emotions are dull. Some days the world presses hard. None of this excuses the abandonment of what is right. The disciplined person does not ask whether the inner weather is pleasant. He asks whether the action is just. She asks whether the response is wise. This is the center of freedom. The world may touch you, but it need not govern you. Feeling may rise, but it need not command you. Habit may pull, but it need not prevail. Reason remains the court to which all of these must answer. Your repeated acts should not be random. They should be chosen with care. Repeat what strengthens the self in relation to what lies within your control. Repeat the habit of examining your first impression before accepting it. Repeat the habit of pausing before speaking in anger. Repeat the habit of finishing what you start. Repeat the habit of meeting discomfort without complaint. Repeat the habit of remembering that honor belongs to conduct, not to outcome. Repeat the habit of refusing to call every inconvenience an injustice. Repeat the habit of seeing each task as a chance to prove to yourself that you are not ruled by impulse. These are not abstract ideals. They are concrete disciplines. They can be practiced this morning, this afternoon, this evening. There will be days when the old self resists. That resistance is not strange. It is the noise of a habit that does not wish to die. The part of you that has grown accustomed to ease will argue. It will say that one missed practice will not matter. It will say that the duty can wait. It will say that your mood deserves priority. Do not enter a debate with that part of yourself. Recognize it as the voice of a weaker pattern, not as truth. Then return to the act. The act is stronger than the argument. Repetition does not only build virtue, it weakens the claims of the habit that opposes it. Every time you do what is right while the lower impulse complains, the lower impulse loses some of its authority. This is how the self becomes trustworthy. Not because temptation disappears, not because difficulty vanishes, not because the mind becomes permanently serene. Trustworthiness grows because the same right action is chosen so often that it becomes easier to expect from yourself than the old failure. This is a serious matter. To be unable to trust your own conduct is a deep form of weakness. It makes every promise uncertain. It makes every plan fragile. It makes the mind restless because it does not know whether it can rely on the one person it must live with always. The remedy is repetition. Repeat keeping your word. Repeat keeping your attention. Repeat keeping your standards. In time, your own character becomes less of a stranger to you. Do not aim only at outward success. Aim at inward agreement. It is possible to win the approval of others and still remain divided within. It is possible to appear productive and still be governed by vanity. It is possible to look disciplined for a season and still collapse when praise disappears. Virtue is not performance. It is the agreement of judgment, choice, and action. When these three move together, the soul is no longer at war with itself. Repetition leads to this harmony. You repeatedly choose what reason approves. You repeatedly refuse what reason rejects. You repeatedly return after distraction. You repeatedly correct yourself without bitterness. Slowly the soul comes into order. That order is worth more than the admiration of the crowd. You must also repeat the practice of distinguishing what belongs to you from what does not. Your judgments belong to you. Your choices belong to you. Your effort belongs to you. The response of others does not belong to you. The shape of every outcome does not belong to you. The weather of the day does not belong to you. The delay of a result does not belong to you. The consistency of your own character does. So repeatedly return your attention there. When the mind reaches outward in complaint, bring it back. When it seeks guarantees, bring it back. When it begs for certainty in external things, bring it back. A soul that repeats this return becomes less frantic and more steady. It learns the correct scale of things. It stops treating what is outside as if it were its own life. There is a dignity in repetition that many overlook because they are hungry for novelty. Novelty excites, repetition forms, novelty entertains, repetition frees, novelty gives the rush of possibility, repetition gives the strength of certainty. The one who keeps returning to worthy action will become less dependent on stimulation and more anchored in principle. This is crucial because a mind that always seeks newness is easy to distract and easy to manipulate, but a mind trained by repetition is harder to scatter. It knows its direction. It does not need constant emotional stimulation to remain loyal to what is good. At the end of the day, examine not just what you did, but what you repeated. Did you repeat complaint or gratitude? Did you repeat avoidance or courage? Did you repeat distraction or attention? Did you repeat surrender to appetite or obedience to reason? This examination should be honest and unsparing, but let it be useful, not theatrical. The purpose is to correct tomorrow, not to mourn today. If you see that you repeated weakness, do not hide it, name it. If you see that you repeated something worthy, do not boast, protect it. What is repeated becomes easier. That is why the evening review matters so much. It reveals which path you are laying beneath your feet. Remember that character is not a gift arriving from outside. It is the result of what you have chosen often enough that it now appears to be part of your nature. In truth, it is part of your training. This is encouraging because it means you are not trapped by the habits of yesterday. You can repeat a better action today, then tomorrow, then the next day. Each repetition is a small vote against the old disorder and a small vote for the life reason demands. Do not despise the smallness of the step. Great steadiness is made of small steps faithfully repeated. Live then as one who understands that the soul becomes what it practices. Repeat fairness until fairness becomes easier than resentment. Repeat patience until patience becomes easier than anger. Repeat restraint until restraint becomes easier than indulgence. Repeat truth until truth becomes easier than self-protection. Repeat duty until duty becomes easier than delay. This is not a theory, it is the plain workshop of the inner life. Every day presents materials, every choice adds a shape, every repetition deepens the form. You do not need a perfect beginning. You need a serious return. Begin this morning with one worthy act and then another. Return each time you drift. Do not wait for the feeling of being ready. Train the self until readiness is no longer a question. Then keep training. Virtue is not a decoration for the soul. It is the soul's true health. And health is not preserved by admiration. It is preserved by habit. Repeat the worthy act. Repeat it again. Repeat it until your choices no longer feel borrowed from effort, but arise from character itself. Then you will know that you have not merely admired the good, you have become a person who can be trusted to live it. Number 4. Accept slow progress without surrendering your daily discipline. You want speed because speed gives the mind the comforting illusion that it is in control. You want visible change before the work has had time to work. You want the old habits to leave quickly, the new habits to feel natural immediately, and the proof of progress to arrive before patience is required. But the soul does not mature on command. A mind trained for years by impulse will not become steady in a day simply because you have become ashamed of your weakness. Accept this without resentment. Slow progress is not failure. Slow progress is the ordinary shape of real improvement. What matters is not whether your growth is dramatic. What matters is whether you remain faithful while it is still small. Many people become discouraged because they look for signs that are too large. They want a sudden calm that never returns. They want one clean victory that ends all struggle. They want a clear transformation that removes the need for daily effort. That is not how the human mind is formed. The mind changes by repeated correction. It changes by being brought back from error again and again. It changes by daily discipline that seems modest on one day and powerful after many days. If you cannot yet see great progress, do not use that as a reason to abandon the work. Use it as proof that the work is honest. Anything worth becoming will ask more from you than a brief burst of enthusiasm. Wake with this understanding. Today may not reveal the full fruit of your effort. Today may feel ordinary. Today may contain the same temptations, the same delays, the same irritations, the same inner resistance that you met yesterday. This does not mean you are not changing. It means you are still in training. The soul is not judged by how quickly it is perfected, but by whether it continues to return to what is right. So when you rise, do not ask whether today will be the day everything becomes easy. Ask instead whether you will do your part with steadiness. That question keeps you near reality. The other question feeds vanity and impatience. Your suffering often comes not from slow progress itself, but from the judgment you attach to it. You call it disappointing. You call it proof that you are behind. You call it evidence that your effort is weak. These are not facts, they are interpretations. The event is simply that growth has taken time. The mind adds the pain by insisting that time should not have been needed, but time belongs to what is not yours to command. The pace of external results does not answer to your wishes. Your effort does, your discipline does, your judgment does. These are the things you must keep within your care. To resent slow progress is to quarrel with the nature of becoming itself. You do not own the schedule of every outcome. You own the way you meet the schedule. That is the distinction that saves the mind from needless rebellion. A person may be doing all that reason requires and still see little outward change for a while. Another person may be given easy success and still remain inwardly disordered. The wise person does not measure the goodness of a day only by visible results. He measures whether he remained just, restrained, attentive, and faithful. She measures whether the day was governed by reason rather than appetite. These are standards that remain available even when the world is slow to reward you. So begin your morning by separating what belongs to you from what does not. The feeling of impatience is not yours to command at will, but the choice to obey it is. The speed of your growth is not yours to command, but the effort you bring is. The reactions of others are not yours to command, but your own conduct is. The final shape of many circumstances is not yours to command, but your standard in the middle of them is. Keep returning to this separation. It will protect you from the bitterness that grows when people confuse effort with guarantee. A disciplined life does not promise immediate results. It promises that you will not abandon yourself while waiting. This is where many lose heart. They begin well, then become offended by the slowness of their own repair. They expected a cleaner victory. They wanted fewer setbacks. They wanted the inner battle to end once they had chosen virtue. But choosing virtue does not silence resistance forever. It establishes the law by which resistance must now be answered. You will still feel the pull of old habits. You will still encounter fatigue. You will still have days when your attention is weak and your patience is thin. That is not a sign to stop. It is the field in which discipline proves itself. The person who remains faithful only when progress is quick has not yet learned perseverance. The one who continues when progress is hidden is being formed. Do not insult your own effort because it has not produced instant change. The smallest daily act done with reason is not small in the sight of the soul. One honest morning, one restrained reaction, one refusal to complain, one task completed without escape, one moment of silent examination before speaking. These moments may not feel grand while they are happening, but they are teaching the mind its proper shape. They are weak in appearance and strong in effect. Over time, they create a person who is less ruled by mood and more governed by principle. That person is built slowly, but once built is harder to shake. When impatience rises, answer it with a deeper question. What exactly am I demanding? Am I demanding control over things outside me? Am I demanding that results arrive on my preferred schedule? Am I demanding that the work be less difficult than it is? Am I demanding that growth should spare me discomfort? These demands are childish because they deny the nature of life. Life requires effort, it requires correction, it requires repetition, it requires endurance when the fruit is not yet visible. The mature mind does not ask reality to become easier before it behaves well. It adjusts itself to reality and continues. There is also a dangerous thought that whispers to the restless person. It says that because progress is slow, the current effort may as well be wasted. That thought is a lie. No act of discipline is wasted when it has been done in good faith. Even when the result is delayed, the soul is being trained. Even when no one notices, the inner government is being strengthened. Even when the outward mark seems faint, the habit is being laid. The mind that quits because the change is not dramatic abandons the very process that would have made it strong. Do not surrender to that lie. Stay with the work long enough to let the work shape you. Each day, choose one discipline that you will keep regardless of your mood. Rise at the same hour. Sit in silence before the noise begins. Examine the day ahead and decide in advance how you will meet what lies outside your control. Commit to one act of restraint that your weaker self would rather avoid. Return in the evening and review whether you stayed close to reason. This routine may appear plain, even unremarkable. That is its strength. The mind is not renewed by occasional heroics. It is renewed by dependable practice. A life that depends on emotion will collapse under ordinary pressure. A life that depends on practice can endure. You must also become honest about the way you speak to yourself when progress is slow. Many people pretend to be thoughtful while secretly being cruel. They say they are simply being realistic, but what they are really doing is discouraging themselves before the task has had enough time to bear fruit. They call themselves lazy, broken, behind, or incapable, and then wonder why their courage fades. Reason does not speak in this way. Reason is firm, but it is not abusive. It says you are struggling and must continue. It says you have fallen short and must correct the course. It says the work remains before you and cannot be done by complaint. Speak to yourself with the truth that guides rather than the voice that humiliates. Slow progress asks for a special kind of strength. It asks you to remain loyal to what is right even when no quick reward appears. It asks you to believe in the value of your own discipline before that value is proven by results. It asks you to trust that character can be formed through repetition, even while the old habits are still alive. This is not blind hope. It is a clear understanding of how human beings change. A person becomes just by doing just acts. A person becomes self-controlled by repeatedly refusing excess. A person becomes steady by returning to steadiness after every drift. The evidence accumulates quietly. You may not feel it each day, but it is there. When disappointment tries to take root, bring your mind back to the only question that truly matters. Did I do what was within my power today? Not did I become perfect. Not did I solve every weakness. Not did I see every result I wanted. Did I do what was within my power today? If the answer is yes, then you have not failed, even if the pace feels slow. If the answer is no, then you do not need despair. You need correction. This question strips away drama and leaves only responsibility. It returns you to the one place where peace can actually be built, which is the area of choice under your own care. There will be days when your discipline feels thin. On those days, do not try to become impressive. Try to become faithful. Faithfulness is what matters. Stay with your practice, even if you can only do it in a reduced form. Keep the promise, even if it must be kept quietly. Hold the line, even if the victory feels small. Small victories still matter because they preserve the structure of character. The soul is not strengthened by waiting for grand conditions. It is strengthened by refusing to abandon the good simply because the results are delayed. Even your failures can serve this training if you refuse to turn them into excuses. A lapse does not mean you must begin again from nothing. It means you must return to your standard with greater alertness. See what allowed the lapse. Was it impatience? Was it pride? Was it fatigue? Was it carelessness, inattention? Was it the belief that the rule no longer applied because the mood had changed? Identify the cause, then correct it. This is how slow progress becomes real progress. Not by pretending you never fall, by learning from the fall without making a home in it. You should expect the journey to require endurance. The mind that seeks only swift change is too fond of spectacle. The mind that accepts gradual formation is more serious. It understands that the character worth having is not made in a single surge, but in a long obedience to what reason approves. This understanding steadies the heart. It removes the panic that says nothing is happening because nothing dramatic has happened. Much is happening. The habits are being challenged. The judgments are being refined. The inner voice is being trained to answer reality rather than complaint. Remember, too, that your relationships will test this patience. Other people will not become easier just because you are trying to improve. They will still have their moods, their delays, their blind spots, their demands, and their limitations. If your peace depends on them changing quickly, you will suffer often. But if your peace depends on your own conduct, you will remain freer. Slow progress applies not only to your own growth, but to your expectations of others. Do not demand from them what reason has taught you to ask from yourself. Ask for honesty where honesty is due. Ask for fairness where fairness is possible. Then accept what remains outside your command. At the close of each day, examine whether you stayed faithful despite the pace. Did you complain because the work felt slow? Did you quit internally while still pretending to continue outwardly? Did you compare your beginning to another person's middle? Did you judge yourself by a timetable you never actually controlled? Catch these habits early. They waste energy that should be given to the work itself. Slow progress becomes unbearable only when the mind keeps demanding proof instead of practicing patience. You are allowed to be in process. You are not allowed to stop governing yourself because the process is taking time. That is the line. That is where your freedom must stand. Continue the discipline. Continue the morning reflection. Continue the evening review. Continue the separation between what belongs to you and what does not. Continue the refusal to make feelings your ruler. Continue the return to reason. The visible results may move slowly. Let them. Your duty is not to command the speed. Your duty is to remain worthy of the progress when it comes. Hold steady now. Not because the road is quick, but because the road is right. Not because the changes are immediate, but because the changes are real. Not because every day feels victorious, but because each day offers another chance to govern yourself well. Stay with the discipline. Let time do its work while you do yours. In that patient union of effort and reason, the soul grows firm. Number 5. Strengthen your judgment through constant, faithful daily practice. Your life does not rise and fall with events. It rises and falls with the judgments you place upon events. That is the place where peace is won or lost, where courage is preserved or surrendered, where a human being either remains free or becomes a slave to first impressions. Most people do not suffer because reality is unbearable. They suffer because they rush to interpret reality before reason has spoken. A delay becomes disrespect. A mistake becomes humiliation. A silence becomes rejection. A setback becomes proof of failure. The mind is quick to accuse, quick to panic, quick to mourn, and slow to examine itself. This haste is the beginning of much misery. A judgment accepted too quickly becomes a chain. A judgment examined carefully becomes a path to freedom. Look at the shape of your own days. How often do you react before you understand? How often do you allow a sharp thought to settle into certainty without checking whether it deserves your trust? How often do you speak under the rule of irritation and only later discover that the irritation was built on assumption? This is not weakness of body, it is weakness of discipline. The mind was given the power to examine impressions, yet it often behaves as though every impression were already truth. The result is a life of needless disturbance. You do not merely encounter the world, you interpret it. And the quality of your life depends on whether those interpretations are trained or careless. Strengthening judgment is not a matter of collecting more opinions. It is a matter of becoming more honest about the ones you already carry. The untrained mind accepts whatever arrives first. It says, "This person offended me. This event ruined my day. This delay is intolerable. This discomfort should not be happening to me." But the disciplined mind knows that the first thought is only a visitor. It has not yet been tested. It may be exaggerated. It may be false. It may be born from old fear rather than present fact. So the disciplined mind pauses. It asks what is truly known. It asks what is merely assumed. It asks whether the feeling attached to the impression has authority or only noise. This pause is not hesitation, it is strength. Each morning, before the world begins demanding your attention, examine the condition of your mind. Do not rush into the day as though your judgments were already trustworthy. Sit still long enough to remember that the day will bring praise and blame, inconvenience and comfort, agreement and conflict, and that none of these things can govern your inner life unless you hand them power. Remind yourself that what is yours is not the event, but the judgment, not the reply of another person, but your response, not the success or failure of the outcome, but the honesty of the effort. This morning recollection is not a ritual for decoration. It is a sharpening of the instrument by which you live. The mind becomes clear through repetition. Just as a blade grows dull when neglected, judgment grows weak when never tested. That is why you must practice daily. Practice not merely in moments of crisis, but in ordinary hours. When you read something irritating, pause before agreeing with the irritation. When you hear a complaint, notice whether the complaint enters you as truth or merely as pressure. When you feel the old urge to defend yourself, ask whether you are defending justice or vanity. Constant faithful practice means that the mind is never left unwatched for long. It means that you become a guardian of your own thoughts rather than their captive. There is great danger in confusing emotional intensity with accuracy. A thought may arrive with force and still be false. A fear may feel urgent and still be unworthy of obedience. A resentment may burn hot and still arise from a mistaken judgment. The strength of the feeling does not prove the truth of the view. You must learn to separate the heat of an impression from the worth of its content. If you do not, every strong feeling will become a ruler, and what a cruel ruler that would be, for it changes by the hour. It gives one command in the morning and another by evening. Reason does not behave like that. Reason stays steady even when feeling is loud. You strengthen judgment by refusing to grant automatic trust to your reactions. That is a difficult habit to break because reaction has become familiar. It has probably guided you for years. It has made you defensive, eager, restless, or easily offended. It has whispered that comfort should decide action and that discomfort means something is wrong. But discomfort often means only that discipline is required. Difficulty often means only that the soul is being asked to grow. The mind that has trained itself to flee every uneasy feeling will remain fragile. The mind that learns to stay, observe, and choose wisely becomes firm. This firmness is not cold, it is calm. It is the kind of calm that can face reality without distortion. You cannot strengthen judgment while avoiding self-examination. A person who never looks inward is forced to live by habit alone. Habit will use old wounds, old fears, old assumptions, and old desires to write the script of the day, self-examination interrupts that cycle. It asks, why did I react so quickly? Why did I trust that thought? Why did I speak in that tone? Why did I allow that fear to steer me? These questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to make you clear. Clear sight is more useful than comfort. Clear sight allows correction. Confused sight keeps you repeating the same pain under different names. A great part of judgment lies in knowing what belongs to you and what does not. Your choice belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your standard belongs to you. The outcome of many events does not belong to you. The mood of another person does not belong to you. The timing of reward does not belong to you. The weather of the world does not belong to you. When you attach your peace to what is not yours, you live like someone trying to hold water in open hands. It will never stay. But when you keep your mind fixed on what is yours, the burden becomes lighter and the path becomes straight. The wise person does not waste judgment trying to command the uncontrollable. The wise person returns to what can actually be governed. That return must happen many times a day. You will not once and for all master your mind and then forget the work. The work is ongoing because impressions keep arriving. A message comes, a memory rises, an expectation is frustrated, a person speaks carelessly, an inner story begins. Each of these moments is a test of whether your judgment has been strengthened by practice. The test is not whether you feel nothing, it is whether you examine before you consent. That is the discipline. Examine the thought, examine the feeling, examine the impulse, then decide whether reason approves. If it does not, dismiss it. If it does, follow it without delay. Constant faithful practice also means returning to reason after failure, not only after success. There will be hours when your judgment is poor, you will overreact, you will assume too much, you will complain, you will speak from irritation rather than wisdom. Do not make such moments into identities. They are warnings. They show where training is still needed. When you notice the failure, do not wander into self-pity. Self-pity is only another way the mind excuses itself from responsibility. Instead, correct the judgment that caused the failure and proceed with greater vigilance. The point is not to pretend you are already perfect. The point is to become more truthful each time you fall short. A disciplined judgment changes how you approach your duties. Work no longer becomes a battlefield of moods. You stop asking whether you feel like doing what must be done. You ask whether the task is yours and whether reason calls for it. If it is yours, you begin. A mind trained in judgment does not need to be convinced by emotion before acting. It understands that worthy action is not made lesser by a lack of enthusiasm. In fact, acting well without enthusiasm often proves that the mind has become more sovereign. It shows that you are not a servant to the changing weather inside you. It also changes how you deal with other people. When judgment is weak, every behavior from others is interpreted through personal offense, suspicion, or comparison. When judgment is strong, you see more clearly that many things others do have nothing to do with your worth. A careless remark may reveal their own agitation, not your value. A delay may reveal their limitation, not your importance. A disagreement may reveal differing views, not insult. This does not make you passive, it makes you fair. A fair mind does not magnify what should remain small. It does not turn every inconvenience into a wound. It responds according to reason instead of wounded habit. To strengthen judgment, practice speaking less to the noise in your head and more to the truth. The noise says everything is urgent. The truth asks whether this matter truly belongs to the present moment. The noise says you must decide immediately. The truth says some matters require stillness before action. The noise says discomfort should be avoided at once. The truth says discomfort may be the price of becoming better. The noise says others must understand you before you can be calm. The truth says your calm should not depend on their understanding. Every day gives you these choices. Every day gives you a chance to honor truth over agitation. The evening review is essential because it reveals whether you were guided by judgment or by impulse. Before sleep, look back on the day with a candid mind. Where did you accept a thought too quickly? Where did you believe a complaint without question? Where did you allow a desire to overrule your standard? Where did you separate what belongs to you from what does not? Where did you return to reason in time, and where did you delay that return? This review should be calm and exact. Do not dramatize your errors. Do not disguise your victories. Just tell the truth. Truth is the hand that corrects the mind. Over time, this practice changes the very texture of your inner life. The gap between impression and reaction grows wider. In that gap, freedom lives. You begin to notice how often the mind wants to hurry toward judgment before evidence has spoken. You begin to catch the early movement of resentment before it hardens. You begin to recognize that peace is not found in eliminating every disturbance from life, but in learning to think rightly in the presence of disturbance. That is why judgment matters so much. The world will continue to be mixed. Your task is to become more exact. Do not demand from yourself a flawless mind. Demand an honest one. A mind can be trained if it is willing to be corrected. A mind can become steady if it keeps returning to the work. A mind can grow wise if it no longer trusts every impression that passes through it. This is how judgment becomes stronger, not through pride, but through faithful practice. Each day you are given another chance to observe, to test, to correct, and to choose. Use that chance well. Let your morning begin with awareness. Let your day proceed with examination. Let your evening close with review. Let each thought pass through the gate of reason. Let each feeling be seen without worship. Let each complaint be questioned. Let each duty be approached according to what is within your power. If you practice this constantly and faithfully, your judgment will become less scattered and more exact. And when judgment becomes exact, life becomes simpler. Not easy, but simpler. You will know what is yours to bear. You will know what can be released. You will know when to act and when to wait. You will know how to remain upright even when the world around you is unsettled. This is the quiet strength you have been searching for. Not the strength of reacting faster, but the strength of judging better. Not the strength of feeling more intensely, but the strength of seeing more clearly. Not the strength of controlling every outcome, but the strength of governing the mind that meets the outcome. Practice it today. Practice it again tomorrow. Keep practicing until reason is not an occasional guest in your life, but its steady ruler. Number 6. Reject excuses and fulfill every chosen duty with consistency. The greatest obstacle standing between you and a disciplined life is rarely the difficulty of the task itself. It is the excuse that appears before the task even begins. Long before your hands refuse to work, your mind has already begun defending its surrender. It quietly searches for reasons that sound reasonable enough to protect you from responsibility. It says the timing is poor. It says you are too tired. It says tomorrow will provide better conditions. It says you deserve a pause before you begin. Listen carefully, and you will notice that these voices rarely disappear. They simply change their language. If you obey them often enough, they become the hidden rulers of your life. You imagine that circumstances are directing your days when in truth it is your own unexamined judgments that have accepted every excuse without resistance. The mind has a remarkable talent for disguising avoidance as wisdom. It does not always announce itself honestly. It does not say, "I wish to escape my duty." Instead, it speaks in softer words that protect your pride. It tells you that you are waiting for the right opportunity. It tells you that careful planning must come before action. It tells you that you are simply preserving your energy. Yet beneath these explanations often lies one simple reality. You have chosen temporary comfort over faithful action. Until you learn to expose this deception within yourself, your character will continue to drift wherever convenience leads it. Examine your own life without attempting to defend it. Think about the duties you have delayed, the conversations you have postponed, the responsibilities you have repeatedly moved into the future. Ask yourself whether those delays truly came from necessity or whether they were protected by stories your mind eagerly believed. Honest examination requires courage because it removes every place where self-deception can hide. Once excuses lose their disguise, they also lose much of their power. A clear mind cannot easily be persuaded by arguments it knows are false. Every morning presents a choice before any visible action begins. Will you allow your first thoughts to negotiate with your responsibilities, or will you decide that your responsibilities deserve obedience regardless of passing preference? The first moments after waking are often quiet enough to reveal your habitual patterns. You may notice reluctance before the day has even started. You may notice the desire to delay what should be done first. Rather than following that impulse, stop and remind yourself that feelings do not determine obligation. Your duties are not less worthy because your enthusiasm has not arrived. They remain worthy because reason has already recognized them as necessary. The discipline of each morning should therefore begin with deliberate reflection. Sit quietly before the noise of the day enters your attention. Ask yourself what responsibilities genuinely belong to you today. Separate them from hopes, fears, and imagined outcomes. There are conversations you may need to have honestly. There is work that deserves careful effort. There are promises that require fulfillment. There are opportunities to practice fairness, patience, restraint, and truthfulness. These belong to your character. Whether others appreciate them does not belong to your character. Whether circumstances become favorable does not belong to your character. Keep these boundaries clear before your day begins, and your judgment will remain steadier when difficulties appear. One excuse deserves particular attention because it quietly weakens many lives. It is the belief that small failures justify abandoning larger commitments. You miss one day of practice, and the mind suggests that the discipline has already been broken beyond repair. You fall short once, and the mind begins preparing permission to surrender completely. This way of thinking mistakes interruption for defeat. A disciplined person does not measure success by uninterrupted perfection. A disciplined person measures success by faithful return. Every time you come back to what is right after wandering away, you strengthen your authority over yourself. Returning without complaint is itself part of the discipline. Your chosen duties deserve consistency because they shape the person you become. Every repeated fulfillment of responsibility quietly builds reliability within your character. Every neglected obligation quietly teaches your mind that your own decisions can be ignored. This is why private conduct matters so deeply. The promises you keep with yourself determine whether you become someone worthy of your own trust. If your own commitments carry no authority in your eyes, how will you remain steadfast when greater tests arrive? Character is not strengthened during extraordinary moments alone. It is strengthened during ordinary mornings when nobody is watching and no reward is waiting. Many people imagine duty as something imposed upon them from outside. They think of obligation as a burden placed upon unwilling shoulders. But true duty begins within the governance of your own mind. It begins when reason identifies what is right and asks for your cooperation. You are not forced into this agreement. You either consent willingly or you refuse it through neglect. Every refusal leaves a mark upon your character. Every faithful acceptance strengthens it. This is why fulfilling duty is ultimately an act of freedom rather than oppression. You are choosing to obey your highest judgment instead of your weakest impulse. As the day unfolds, your duties will often compete against distractions that appear harmless. A brief diversion promises only a few moments. An unnecessary complaint asks only for a little attention. A pointless argument invites only one response. Yet every unnecessary surrender divides your attention and weakens your resolve. The disciplined mind does not become harsh toward itself, but neither does it casually scatter its energy. It notices where attention is being stolen and calmly returns to what deserves care. Every return is a quiet victory over disorder. There will be moments when your emotions argue against your responsibilities. Irritation may encourage careless speech. Weariness may encourage avoidance. Pride may encourage unnecessary conflict. Anxiety may encourage endless hesitation. At such moments, do not ask which feeling is strongest. Ask which choice remains worthy even if the feeling continues. You are not required to eliminate every uncomfortable emotion before acting well. You are required only to prevent those emotions from becoming your master. Duty performed despite emotional resistance carries deeper strength than duty performed only when everything feels pleasant. Throughout the day, pause briefly whenever you notice resistance growing inside your mind. Rather than immediately obeying or suppressing it, examine it. Ask yourself what excuse is attempting to gain permission. Is it asking for comfort where discipline is needed? Is it asking for certainty where only faithful effort is available? Is it asking for immediate reward before honest labor has been completed? By naming the excuse clearly, you separate yourself from it. Once exposed, it becomes easier to refuse. Another dangerous habit appears when people compare their own responsibilities with those of others. They become distracted by another person's progress, recognition, possessions, or opportunities. Comparison weakens duty because it shifts attention away from what actually belongs to your care. The disciplined person asks a different question, not whether another person has been treated more generously by fortune, but whether today's responsibilities have been met with integrity. Your task is never to govern another life. Your task is to govern your own choices faithfully. Do not imagine that consistency means every day will feel equally productive. Some days your work will appear impressive. Other days it will seem painfully ordinary. Reason does not measure duty according to excitement. It measures duty according to faithfulness. A simple task completed honestly possesses greater worth than an ambitious plan left unfinished. Your responsibility is not to create dramatic moments. Your responsibility is to keep your character aligned with what reason has already recognized as good. You should also become cautious whenever the mind begins negotiating standards after they have already been established. Before difficulty appears, you often know exactly what should be done. Then discomfort arrives, and suddenly exceptions begin multiplying. The rule that seemed clear yesterday now appears flexible today. This is often not wisdom adapting to circumstance. It is desire attempting to rewrite judgment. Protect yourself from this habit by deciding important standards while your mind is calm. Then honor those standards when emotion later attempts to bargain with them. Each evening, before rest claims your attention, conduct a sincere examination of your conduct. Ask yourself which duties received your full effort and which were weakened by excuses. Observe your reactions without anger or vanity. If you neglected something within your control, acknowledge it plainly. If you fulfilled a difficult responsibility despite inner resistance, acknowledge that as well without pride. Honest review allows tomorrow's judgment to become more precise. Every evening becomes another lesson rather than another forgotten day. You will discover that excuses lose strength when they are repeatedly challenged. They survive only because they remain unexamined. Every time reason refuses them, they become less convincing. Gradually, the conversation inside your own mind begins to change. Instead of searching for permission to delay, you begin searching for the next faithful action. Instead of asking whether you feel prepared, you ask whether the duty belongs to you. Instead of wondering whether success is guaranteed, You ask whether integrity has been preserved. These questions transform the quality of your days because they keep attention fixed upon what truly matters. Never mistake consistency for rigidity. A disciplined life is not stubborn attachment to routines for their own sake. It is steady devotion to virtue through changing circumstances. Some duties will require flexibility, others will require patience, others will require immediate courage. What remains unchanged is your commitment to letting reason guide every adjustment. Circumstances may shift beyond your authority, but the quality of your response remains yours to shape. Consistency belongs not to identical actions, but to unwavering character. When you fulfill your chosen duties faithfully, something remarkable begins to happen within you. The conflict between knowing and doing slowly becomes smaller. The promises you make to yourself begin carrying real weight. Your words and your conduct move closer together. Peace grows because your inner life is no longer divided by constant negotiation. You become someone who can rely upon your own judgment because your actions repeatedly confirm it. This quiet trust cannot be purchased from the outside world. It is earned through daily obedience to what you already know is right. The world will continue offering reasons to postpone your responsibilities. Circumstances will never become permanently convenient. There will always be distractions competing for your attention, emotions requesting immediate satisfaction, and uncertainties tempting you toward hesitation. Waiting for perfect conditions is simply another excuse wearing respectable clothing. The disciplined soul does not demand certainty before acting well. It recognizes that today's faithful effort is enough. Carry this understanding into tomorrow morning. Rise before your excuses become louder than your reason. Identify the duties that genuinely belong to you and accept them without complaint. Throughout the day, examine every impulse that seeks escape before granting it permission. Return your attention whenever it wanders toward matters outside your control. In the evening, review your conduct honestly and prepare to improve again. A life governed by excuses becomes smaller with every passing year because every avoided duty quietly narrows the soul. A life governed by faithful action grows stronger through every ordinary decision because every fulfilled responsibility widens the capacity for virtue. Choose the second path each day, not because it is easier, but because it allows your character to become worthy of the reason that guides it. Continue walking that path with consistency, and you will discover that the greatest victory was never over circumstances. It was over the endless excuses that once ruled your own mind. Number 7. Master present actions because tomorrow remains beyond your control. Tomorrow has become the hiding place of countless abandoned lives. It is where difficult conversations are postponed, worthy habits are delayed, necessary duties are ignored, and honest self-examination is endlessly rescheduled. The mind speaks gently when it offers tomorrow. It promises that you will begin when conditions improve, when your energy returns, when confidence grows, or when life becomes less demanding. Yet tomorrow never arrives in the form you imagined. When it finally becomes today, the same excuses appear wearing different clothing. This is not the work of fate. It is the work of an undisciplined mind that keeps exchanging present responsibility for imagined future readiness. Look carefully at your own thinking. How many times have you convinced yourself that the better version of you belongs to another day? How many mornings have begun with good intentions only to dissolve into delay because you believed there would always be another opportunity? Every postponed act teaches the mind something dangerous. It teaches that your own judgment carries little authority. It teaches that reason may speak clearly, but impulse may always overrule it. The cost of delay is not only the unfinished task. The greater cost is the weakening of your own inner government. Every unnecessary postponement makes it easier to postpone again. The present moment is the only place where character can be shaped. You cannot choose yesterday because it has already passed beyond your reach. You cannot command tomorrow because it has not yet been placed in your hands. You possess only this moment of judgment, this moment of choice, this moment of action. Everything that belongs to your moral life exists here. The mind often resists this truth because it wishes to control time itself. It wishes to rewrite what has already happened and guarantee what has not yet occurred. In pursuing these impossible desires, it neglects the only place where genuine power exists. When you become absorbed by tomorrow, your attention leaves the duty standing before you. Instead of asking what should be done now, you begin imagining what might happen later. Fear invents outcomes. Hope invents guarantees. Anxiety invents disasters. None of these inventions changes reality. They merely consume the attention that should have been given to present action. A scattered mind suffers twice. It suffers from the imagined future, and then suffers again because today's responsibility has been neglected. Begin every morning by reminding yourself of one simple truth. This day has been placed before you. Nothing more has been promised. This thought should not produce fear. It should produce clarity. When you stop assuming that countless future opportunities belong to you, the present becomes more valuable. The ordinary duties of today stop appearing small. Speaking honestly matters because this conversation exists now. Working carefully matters because this task exists now. Showing patience matters because this person stands before you now. Every opportunity for virtue belongs to the present. Waiting for another day often means refusing the opportunity already given. Before your feet carry you into the demands of the day, spend several quiet moments preparing your judgment. Do not prepare by predicting every event. Prepare by strengthening the part of yourself that will meet every event. Say to yourself that difficulties may appear, misunderstandings may arise, plans may change, and comfort may disappear. None of these possibilities prevents you from acting according to reason. None of them removes your ability to choose fairness over resentment, courage over avoidance, restraint over excess, or truth over convenience. This preparation gives stability because it places your attention where it belongs. One of the greatest errors the mind commits is confusing preparation with endless anticipation. Wise preparation concerns your own character. Endless anticipation concerns circumstances beyond your authority. You can prepare yourself to remain patient if someone speaks harshly. You cannot prepare by demanding that nobody ever speaks harshly. You can prepare yourself to continue your work despite disappointment. You cannot prepare by requiring that disappointment never visits your life. The first strengthens your character. The second strengthens your frustration. As the day unfolds, notice how often your thoughts wander beyond the moment that actually exists. While performing one task, your mind begins worrying about another. While speaking with one person, you begin imagining future disagreements. While enjoying one quiet moment, you begin fearing future loss. These habits scatter the attention until nothing receives your full presence. Yet reason asks something entirely different. It asks that you meet each responsibility completely while it stands before you. The future will eventually become another present moment. Until then, it deserves neither your fear nor your attachment. This does not mean you should abandon thoughtful planning. Planning belongs to reason when it prepares wise action. Anxiety belongs to confusion when it attempts to control uncertain outcomes. There is a profound difference between these two activities. One calmly arranges effort. The other desperately demands certainty. One strengthens discipline. The other weakens peace. Learn to recognize which one occupies your mind. If your thinking no longer guides present action, but merely circles around imagined events, you have left the ground where reason can actually help you. Many people quietly believe that peace will arrive after certain future conditions are satisfied. They tell themselves they will become calm after success arrives, after recognition appears, after relationships improve, after financial concerns disappear, or after life becomes easier. This belief keeps peace forever beyond reach because it attaches inner stability to external circumstances. But circumstances continue changing. One achievement gives way to another concern. One solved problem makes room for another challenge. If peace depends on conditions remaining favorable, it will always remain uncertain. The disciplined mind chooses another path. It practices governing itself under present conditions rather than waiting for perfect ones. Your responsibilities deserve your complete attention because they exist only while they are present. A neglected conversation cannot later be spoken exactly as it should have been. A wasted morning cannot be recovered by regretting it tomorrow. A careless decision cannot always be undone after its consequences unfold. This is why each present action carries quiet importance. It is not because every action determines your entire future. It is because every action reveals the condition of your character at this very moment. Character is always practiced in the present tense. When resistance appears, examine it carefully instead of immediately obeying it. You may notice yourself thinking that one delay will make little difference. You may believe another opportunity will surely appear. Pause before accepting such thoughts. Ask whether they arise from reason or from the desire to avoid discomfort. Often the mind invents future possibilities only because it wishes to escape present effort. Once this habit is recognized, it becomes much easier to refuse it. Truth loses nothing by examination. Only excuses fear close attention. Throughout the day, return repeatedly to the distinction between what belongs to you and what does not. The outcome of today's work may remain uncertain. Your willingness to perform that work honestly belongs entirely to you. Another person's opinion may remain beyond your influence. Your choice to speak with fairness belongs to you. Unexpected events may interrupt your plans. Your decision to adapt without bitterness belongs to you. This separation frees the mind from carrying burdens that never belonged to it in the first place. Do not overlook the quiet power of ordinary moments. Washing a dish carefully, listening without interruption, completing an overlooked responsibility, admitting a mistake without defense, beginning a difficult task without delay, remaining composed during inconvenience. These moments rarely receive public recognition, yet they quietly shape the soul. The mind often seeks dramatic opportunities for greatness while neglecting the countless ordinary opportunities already placed within reach. Virtue grows through faithful attention to what stands immediately before you. As evening approaches, resist another common mistake. Do not spend the final hours of your day consumed by regret over what cannot now be altered. Honest reflection serves a different purpose. Review your actions not to punish yourself, but to educate yourself. Ask where your attention wandered into imagined futures. Ask where unnecessary fear distracted you from present responsibility. Ask where reason remained steady despite uncertainty. Every answer prepares tomorrow's judgment without attempting to control tomorrow's events. You should also become careful about the language you use within your own mind. Whenever you hear yourself saying that life will truly begin later, question that thought immediately. Whenever you believe that your best character belongs to some future version of yourself, return to the present. There is no future self capable of making choices that the present self refuses to make. The habits you practice today become the character you carry tomorrow. If you postpone integrity now, you are training yourself to postpone it again. If you practice it now, you prepare yourself to practice it later under greater challenges. Life becomes unnecessarily heavy when you attempt to carry responsibilities that have not yet arrived. Imagine beginning your morning already burdened by next week's conversations, next month's uncertainties, and next year's possibilities. Such thinking does not increase preparedness. It only exhausts attention before today's work has even begun. Wisdom carries only what belongs to the present hour. When the next hour arrives, it accepts that one as well. In this way, the disciplined mind remains steady because it refuses to borrow unnecessary burdens from an unwritten future. You will sometimes encounter setbacks that tempt you to abandon present effort altogether. Plans may fail despite careful preparation. Other people may disappoint you despite your fairness. Progress may appear slower than expected. At such moments, remember that your responsibility has never been to command outcomes. Your responsibility has always been to command your own conduct. External events may interrupt success, but they cannot prevent integrity unless you surrender it yourself. This understanding protects your peace because it rests upon something that remains within your authority. The practice of returning to the present is not accomplished once. It must become a repeated discipline. Your attention will wander, your fears will attempt to outrun reality, your hopes will sometimes become attachments. Every time you notice this movement, calmly return. Return to the conversation taking place before you. Return to the task already waiting. Return to the judgment you are making now. Return to the action that reason presently requires. Every return strengthens the habit of inner government. The evening examination should end with gratitude for another opportunity to practice rather than complaint about unfinished perfection. Recognize where your attention remained faithful. Recognize where it drifted into needless anticipation. Resolve to correct what can still be corrected and peacefully release what no longer belongs to you. Sleep does not belong to someone who has achieved flawless conduct. It belongs to someone who has honestly completed today's labor and entrusted tomorrow to the order of events beyond personal command. Remember that no one is defeated by the uncertainty of tomorrow. People are defeated when they abandon the certainty of today's responsibility. Every meaningful improvement in character begins with one present judgment examined honestly, one present action chosen deliberately, one present duty fulfilled faithfully. The future is shaped by these moments, but it can never replace them. Your life is not waiting somewhere ahead. It is unfolding within the choices you are making now. So stand firmly where your feet already rest. Let your mind remain where your duty already waits. Refuse to spend today's strength chasing tomorrow's shadows. Speak truth now. Practice patience now. Perform your work now. Correct your judgment now. Govern your attention now. This present moment is not merely a passing instant. It is the only place where reason can guide you, where virtue can be practiced, and where freedom can be chosen. Master it faithfully, and whatever tomorrow brings will find you already prepared through the discipline of today. Number 8. Endure discomfort until disciplined action becomes your natural habit. You will not become disciplined because you admire discipline. You will not become steady because you understand steadiness. You will not become free because you agree with the idea of freedom. You become what you repeatedly endure, and most people fail not because they lack knowledge, but because they refuse the discomfort that training requires. The mind wants transformation without friction. It wants strength without strain. It wants a calm character without first passing through the unease of correction. But nothing in nature obeys that wish. Every genuine improvement in human life is born from a period of resistance that must be met rather than avoided. Look at your own habits without softening the truth. How often have you abandoned a worthy action at the first sign of discomfort? How often have you interpreted resistance as a signal to stop rather than a signal to continue? The moment something feels difficult, the mind begins to negotiate. It suggests delay, reduction, substitution, or escape. It tells you that comfort is a reasonable priority and that discipline can resume later when conditions feel better. Yet that later moment rarely changes the pattern, it only repeats it. What you are calling discomfort is often nothing more than the early stage of liberation from habit. The untrained mind confuses discomfort with harm. This is one of its deepest errors. It treats effort as danger, strain as failure, and persistence as punishment. Because of this confusion, it constantly chooses immediate ease and then suffers long-term weakness. But reason sees more clearly. Reason understands that discomfort is often the price of correction. When you are learning to govern yourself, you will feel resistance. When you are breaking old patterns, you will feel tension. When you are choosing discipline over impulse, you will feel inner friction. None of this indicates that you are going wrong. It often indicates that you are finally going right. Begin your day with the understanding that comfort will not guide your growth. If you wait for ease before acting, you will wait indefinitely. Instead, accept in advance that some part of you will resist what is necessary. Do not be surprised by it. Do not treat it as a warning that you are unfit for discipline. It is simply the voice of habit defending itself. Your task is not to obey that voice, but to observe it and continue with what reason has already judged to be right. Every act of endurance weakens the authority of that resistance. Every surrender strengthens it. Discomfort is not an enemy to be eliminated. It is a condition to be trained through. You do not remove it by avoidance. You transform your relationship to it by repeated exposure under the guidance of reason. When you face what is difficult without abandoning your principles, you teach the mind that discomfort does not command you. This is where real strength begins, not in the absence of difficulty, but in the refusal to be governed by it. A person who cannot act without comfort remains a servant of circumstances. A person who can act despite discomfort becomes the ruler of their own conduct. Each morning offers a simple but demanding practice. Before the day begins to pull your attention in many directions, decide what action must be taken regardless of how you feel. Then observe the resistance that arises when the time comes to act. Do not argue with it endlessly. Do not justify it. Recognize it as resistance and proceed anyway. The value lies not in emotional agreement, but in faithful execution. You are not trying to create a life where difficulty disappears. You are training yourself to remain steady while difficulty exists. The mind often demands immediate relief from discomfort. It wants the tension to end before action is completed, but discipline requires a different order. First comes action aligned with reason. Then comes the gradual easing of resistance through repetition. If you reverse this order and wait for relief before acting, you will never develop the strength you are seeking. Relief is not the precondition for discipline. It is the result of discipline sustained over time. Consider how every area of life reflects this principle. Physical training requires enduring fatigue before strength appears. Study requires enduring confusion before understanding becomes clear. Work requires enduring effort before mastery develops. Relationships require enduring friction before deeper trust is formed. In every case, discomfort stands at the threshold of improvement. Those who turn away at the threshold remain unchanged. Those who remain present pass through into capability. The problem is not that discomfort exists. The problem is that the mind assigns it authority. It treats discomfort as a verdict rather than a condition. It assumes that because something feels difficult, it should not be done. But feelings are not judges. They are signals, often shaped by habit rather than truth. A disciplined life begins when you stop treating internal resistance as a decision maker. Instead, you treat it as something to be observed while reason continues to lead. As the day unfolds, you will encounter moments that test this principle repeatedly. A task will feel heavier than expected. A conversation will require more patience than you prefer. A responsibility will demand more focus than your attention wants to give. In these moments, notice the instinct to retreat into ease. Then remind yourself that this instinct has no authority over your choices. It may speak, but it does not decide. Only reason decides, and reason has already identified what must be done. Do not seek dramatic victories over discomfort. Seek quiet, repeated refusals to surrender to it. A single moment of endurance may seem small, but its repetition builds an entirely different inner structure. Each time you remain faithful despite resistance, you strengthen the connection between judgment and action. Each time you give in, you weaken it. Over time, these small choices shape the character more than any single achievement or failure. There will be days when discomfort feels especially loud. On such days, do not attempt to silence it with force. Simply refuse to negotiate with it. Keep your attention on the next right action, not on the feeling that tries to interrupt it. The mind becomes less chaotic when it stops engaging in endless internal debate. Much of suffering comes not from discomfort itself, but from the constant argument with discomfort. End the argument, and clarity begins to return. You must also become honest about the way avoidance disguises itself. It often presents as caution, planning, or self-care. While genuine care for oneself is rational, avoidance is not. Avoidance leaves duty untouched, while giving the illusion of wisdom. It postpones necessary action while claiming to be thoughtful. The difference can be recognized by outcome. Care leads eventually to responsible action. Avoidance leads repeatedly to delay. Learn to see this distinction clearly within yourself. As you continue this practice, something important begins to shift. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt intimidating becomes routine. What once required effort begins to require less inner debate. This is not because difficulty has disappeared, but because your response to it has changed. The mind learns through repetition that discomfort is survivable. Once this lesson is learned deeply enough, fear loses much of its control. Still, do not expect discomfort to vanish entirely. A life governed by reason will always encounter situations that require endurance. The goal is not to eliminate all unease. The goal is to ensure that unease no longer dictates your behavior. A steady mind remains steady precisely because it does not demand perfect conditions. It acts according to principle, regardless of internal weather. This is the foundation of true independence. Each evening, reflect honestly on how you met the discomfort of the day. Where did you remain faithful despite resistance? Where did you retreat too quickly? Where did you allow feeling to interrupt reasoned action? Do not treat these questions as a source of blame. Treat them as instruments of refinement. The purpose of reflection is not to condemn who you were, but to strengthen who you are becoming. Every honest recognition of weakness is an opportunity to reduce its influence tomorrow. Over time, something subtle but profound takes place. Discomfort no longer appears as an obstacle to your life. It becomes part of the process of living rightly. You begin to recognize it as a familiar companion on the path to improvement, rather than a signal to turn away. This shift marks the transition from dependence on comfort to reliance on character. It is the point where discipline begins to feel less like effort and more like identity. Do not underestimate the importance of remaining in the uncomfortable space long enough for transformation to occur. Many people begin but do not stay. They touch discipline briefly, then withdraw when resistance appears again. As a result, they never experience the moment when effort turns into ease. That moment only comes to those who remain, not perfectly, but persistently, not without struggle, but without surrender. So when discomfort arises today, do not interpret it as a sign that you are failing. Interpret it as proof that you are no longer avoiding what matters. Stay with the action, stay with the duty, stay with the judgment that reason has approved. Let discomfort be present without granting it authority. It will rise, it will fall, and it will eventually lose its influence if you refuse to obey it. A disciplined life is not built on comfort. It is built on the quiet decision to remain faithful while comfort is absent. Endure what must be endured, not blindly, but with awareness that endurance itself is shaping your character. Each moment you stay with what is right despite resistance, you become less governed by impulse and more governed by reason. That is the direction of freedom, and it is only reached through the willingness to remain where comfort ends and discipline begins, until disciplined action no longer feels foreign, but simply becomes the way you live. Number 9. Examine yourself every evening and correct every repeated failure. Most people end their day the same way they live it, without examination. They move from action into distraction, from distraction into sleep, carrying everything they did not correct into the next morning as if nothing requires attention. Yet a life that is never reviewed becomes a life that is never governed. Without reflection, mistakes do not remain isolated events. They become patterns, and patterns, left unchecked, become identity. You do not change what you never face. You only repeat it in quieter forms. Your mind already knows how often you escape yourself at the end of the day. You reach for noise, comfort, or distraction because silence forces honesty. In silence, the day cannot be disguised. Every reaction reappears without justification. Every delayed duty returns without excuse. Every unnecessary complaint stands without defense. This is why self-examination is avoided, not because it is harmful, but because it is revealing. And what it reveals is the difference between who you intended to be and how you actually lived. The undisciplined mind fears this moment of review because it removes all storytelling. During the day, the mind is allowed to explain itself endlessly. It says circumstances were unfair. It says emotions were too strong. It says timing was not right. But in the evening, these stories lose their power. Only actions remain, and actions cannot lie. This is why the practice of evening examination is not optional for someone who seeks inner order. It is the point where truth replaces narrative and correction becomes possible. Sit with yourself at the end of each day and do not rush to forgive or condemn. Simply observe. Look at the day as if it belongs to someone you are responsible for guiding. Where did judgment become distorted? Where did reaction replace reason? Where did impulse speak louder than duty? Where did avoidance disguise itself as necessity? These questions are not meant to produce guilt. They are meant to produce clarity. Guilt paralyzes. Clarity corrects. The purpose of examination is not punishment but alignment. Begin with your judgments. Notice where you accepted impressions without question. A remark may have been taken as insult without evidence. A delay may have been interpreted as disrespect without proof. A small inconvenience may have been enlarged into a personal offense. These are failures of judgment, not failures of circumstance. The world does not wound you directly, it offers events, you interpret them, and your suffering often begins at the moment of interpretation, not at the moment of occurrence. Evening review exposes this gap so it can be narrowed tomorrow. Then examine your actions. Where did you avoid what was clearly within your duty? Where did you delay what reason already approved? Where did you act only after persuasion from discomfort or pressure? You will notice that many failures are not dramatic collapses but quiet evasions. A conversation left unfinished. A task postponed without necessity. A promise fulfilled partially instead of fully. These are not minor details. They are the subtle ways in which discipline weakens over time when not corrected. Do not allow the mind to soften these observations. It will attempt to protect itself by minimizing what happened. It will say it was not important. It will say you were tired. It will say tomorrow will be different without change. Recognize this as resistance to truth. The role of examination is to see clearly, not to negotiate comfort. If correction is needed, acknowledge it without exaggeration or denial. The goal is not emotional intensity but accurate understanding. A powerful part of evening reflection is identifying repetition. One mistake is less dangerous than the same mistake left uncorrected. A single moment of impatience is human. A repeated pattern of impatience is character forming itself in the wrong direction. A single failure to focus is ordinary. A repeated habit of distraction becomes a life lived without attention. When you notice repetition, you are no longer dealing with isolated errors. You are observing the early structure of who you are becoming. This is why correction must focus on patterns, not just events. Ask yourself what returned again and again today. Was it complaint? Was it delay? Was it unnecessary worry? Was it impulsive reaction? Was it avoidance of responsibility? Do not answer quickly. Let the memory of the day speak honestly. Then identify where intervention was possible but not taken. Every repeated failure contains a moment where you could have chosen differently. That moment is where discipline must be strengthened, not by regret but by preparation for tomorrow. Now turn attention to what was within your control throughout the day. Your judgments were within your control. Your choices were within your control. Your attention was within your control. Your restraint was within your control. Everything outside these boundaries was not. Many frustrations arise from forgetting this division. You may have spent energy worrying about outcomes that did not belong to you while neglecting the quality of your own actions. Evening examination restores this separation. It returns ownership to its proper place. It is important not to turn this practice into self-hostility. The purpose is not to wound yourself with criticism, but to train yourself through honesty. A craftsman does not hate the material when correcting its shape. He simply adjusts it according to measure. In the same way, you are adjusting your own mind according to reason. There is no need for harshness. There is only need for precision. The more accurate your self-observation becomes, the less repetition of failure will occur. Once you have identified where you fell short, do not leave the reflection without correction. Decide what must change in the next encounter. If impatience arose, determine the exact moment where you will pause before reacting tomorrow. If avoidance occurred, identify the first step you will take without delay. If distraction dominated, decide where attention will be anchored instead. Without correction, examination becomes memory. With correction, it becomes transformation. The mind resists this practice at first because it prefers continuity without interruption. It prefers to move from one day to the next without being confronted. But without interruption, nothing improves. The same errors are carried forward unchanged. Evening examination interrupts the cycle. It forces the mind to acknowledge itself rather than escape itself. Over time, this interruption becomes less uncomfortable because it produces clarity instead of confusion. As this practice deepens, you will begin to notice something important. The day itself becomes more disciplined because you know it will be reviewed. Awareness of future examination changes present behavior. You begin to pause more often before reacting. You begin to consider more carefully before speaking. You begin to notice your own impulses while they are forming, rather than after they have already acted. In this way, evening reflection begins to shape the entire day in advance. Do not underestimate the value of small corrections. A single corrected reaction prevents dozens of future repetitions. A single moment of honest recognition prevents a habit from forming. A single change in response can redirect an entire pattern of behavior. The mind learns slowly, but it learns deeply when correction is consistent. Each evening becomes another opportunity to reduce unnecessary suffering by removing its causes at the level of judgment. There will be evenings when you feel resistant to this practice. You may feel tired or indifferent. You may feel tempted to skip reflection and move directly into rest. On such evenings, Remember that neglecting examination does not remove error, it simply preserves it. What remains unexamined remains uncorrected, and what remains uncorrected will return tomorrow in the same or stronger form. Discipline is not measured only in action during the day, it is measured in willingness to review that action honestly at night. Over time, something subtle begins to shift. You become less surprised by your own behavior because you are no longer absent from it. You are watching it, understanding it, and correcting it regularly. This presence brings stability. Instead of living reactively, you begin living deliberately. Instead of being carried by habits, you begin reshaping them. The mind becomes less chaotic because it is no longer left unchecked for long periods. Even your perception of failure changes. Failure stops being an identity and becomes information. It tells you where attention is needed, where discipline is weak, where judgment requires refinement. Without examination, failure becomes confusion. With examination, it becomes instruction. This is the difference between a life that repeats itself and a life that improves itself. At the end of your reflection, release the day without lingering resentment or attachment. Do not carry its weight into the next morning. You have observed what was necessary. You have identified what must be corrected. That is enough. The purpose is forward movement, not emotional accumulation. A disciplined mind knows when to conclude reflection and return to rest. When you wake the next morning, you begin again not from ignorance but from awareness. You are no longer repeating blindly. You are adjusting consciously. Each evening examination feeds into the next morning's intention. In this cycle, the mind gradually becomes more reliable, more stable, more governed by reason rather than impulse. This is how transformation occurs, not in sudden leaps, but in steady correction guided by honest review. So end each day as a guardian of your own conduct, rather than a spectator of it. Look without avoidance, correct without delay, learn without pride, release without attachment. In this quiet discipline of evening examination, you reclaim authority over yourself, one judgment at a time. And in that repeated act of honesty, a steadier life slowly takes form. Number 10. Live each day with unwavering consistency guided by virtue alone. Most people do not fail because they lack moments of clarity. They fail because they cannot sustain them. They see what is right in flashes, then abandon it in waves. They feel aligned with reason in 1 hour, then return to impulse in the next. This inconsistency is the hidden fracture in almost every troubled life. It is not the absence of understanding that weakens character, but the absence of continuity. A mind that changes direction with every mood cannot build anything stable within itself. Virtue is not proven in isolated moments. It is proven in daily consistency when no inner applause is present and no external pressure forces your hand. You already know, in the quiet part of your mind, how often your actions have been guided by fluctuation rather than principle. One day you act with patience, another day you surrender to irritation. One moment you speak truthfully, another moment you distort words to avoid discomfort. One situation you meet with courage, another you avoid because it feels inconvenient. This shifting pattern is not random. It reveals that your behavior is still negotiating with emotion instead of being governed by virtue. Until this negotiation ends, peace will remain unstable because anything ruled by changeable feelings cannot remain steady for long. Live each day with consistency does not mean living without awareness of change. It means living without surrendering to change as a master. The external world will continue to shift. Circumstances will rise and fall. People will act unpredictably. Your internal discipline must not mirror this instability. If your conduct rises and falls with every emotional tide, then your life is not governed by reason but by reaction, and reaction by its nature cannot provide direction. It only reflects what is happening, never what ought to be chosen. Begin the day by placing virtue at the center of your attention before anything else demands it. Not success, not recognition, not comfort, not avoidance of difficulty, virtue alone. Ask yourself what it means to act justly in the hours ahead, what it means to remain truthful even when distortion would be easier, what it means to remain restrained when indulgence tempts you, what it means to remain steady when irritation rises. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical decisions waiting to be made in real time. When virtue is your guide, each decision becomes simpler because the standard no longer shifts with emotion. The mind often resists consistency because it confuses repetition with limitation. It wants variety in conduct, as if moral direction should change with circumstance in a way that excuses inconsistency. But virtue does not lose relevance when conditions change. Justice is still justice in difficulty. Truth is still truth under pressure. Self-control is still required in fatigue. Courage is still necessary in uncertainty. These principles do not adjust to comfort. They remain stable precisely so that you can remain stable. If your behavior keeps changing its foundation, then nothing within you can stand firmly. Examine how often your judgments shift before your actions even begin. You know what is right in the morning, but by afternoon you begin to question it. You know what must be done, but hesitation introduces alternative stories. You know what kind of person you intend to be, but excuses begin to reshape that intention when effort becomes required. This instability of judgment is where inconsistency begins. To correct it, you must treat your early recognition of what is right as something worth defending against later distortion, not something to be negotiated every time resistance appears. Morning discipline must therefore include not only planning your duties, but also strengthening your resolve to maintain them when feelings change. Do not assume that clarity once gained will remain untouched. It will be tested by fatigue, distraction, desire, and fear. Anticipate this testing without alarm. The purpose of preparation is not to predict every situation, but to prepare the mind to remain aligned with reason regardless of situation. When you understand this, you stop being surprised by inner resistance and start recognizing it as part of the training itself. Throughout the day, you will encounter countless opportunities to abandon consistency. Small compromises will present themselves as harmless, a slight exaggeration to avoid discomfort, a minor delay in fulfilling responsibility, a moment of impatience justified by stress, a withdrawal from effort justified by tiredness. These moments seem insignificant individually, but collectively they determine whether your life is governed by principle or by convenience. Inconsistency is rarely a single dramatic failure. It is usually a series of quiet deviations that accumulate until direction is lost. To remain consistent, you must continually return your attention to what is within your control, your actions, your judgments, your responses, your restraint. Everything else may shift without your permission. If your peace depends on external stability, then peace will remain fragile. But if your consistency depends on internal governance, then stability becomes possible even in unstable conditions. This is why focusing on virtue is not abstract philosophy. It is practical survival for the mind that wishes to remain steady. At midday, when energy weakens and distractions grow stronger, consistency is tested more subtly. The mind begins to negotiate again. It suggests that small deviations will not matter. It argues that effort can be reduced temporarily. It whispers that discipline can resume later without consequence. But every moment of lowered standard is not isolated. It becomes a precedent. Once inconsistency is permitted without correction, it becomes easier to permit again. and what begins as exception slowly becomes habit. Consistency requires awareness of this gradual erosion. You do not lose discipline all at once. You lose it in repeated small permissions granted to impulse. The remedy is not harsh self-punishment, but immediate correction. When you notice deviation, return without delay. Do not allow the mind to linger in justification. Justification strengthens the deviation, correction weakens it. Each return to virtue reinforces the correct direction of your life. Evening reflection is where consistency is tested in memory. You must examine whether the day reflected the principles you claim to follow. Not with pride or despair, but with clarity. Where did you remain aligned with reason even when emotions fluctuated? Where did you abandon alignment and allow impulse to lead? Where did you remain steady across changing conditions, and where did you shift unnecessarily? This review is not about judging identity. It is about measuring direction. A single day does not define you, but repeated days reveal the trajectory of your character. The deeper danger is not failure itself, but inconsistency that goes unnoticed. When inconsistency is not examined, it multiplies without resistance. You begin to believe that your actions are unpredictable rather than self-governed. But when examined honestly, patterns become visible, and what is visible can be corrected. Self-awareness is not comfortable, but it is necessary for coherence. Without it, you live reactively, always adjusting to immediate pressure, rather than guided principle. Virtue alone must become the anchor of your decisions because everything else will eventually fail to provide stability. External conditions will shift, emotions will fluctuate, opinions will vary, rewards will come and go. Only the commitment to act rightly remains constant enough to ground your life. When virtue becomes your reference point, consistency is no longer dependent on how you feel. It becomes dependent on who you have decided to be regardless of feeling. You must also recognize that consistency is not perfection, it is return. You will drift. That is expected. The disciplined person is not the one who never strays, but the one who does not remain away. Each return to virtue strengthens its authority in your life. Each abandonment weakens it. The difference between a chaotic life and a steady one is not the absence of failure, but the frequency and sincerity of return. Over time, something changes in the structure of your mind. Actions that once required internal debate begin to require less resistance. What once felt like effort begins to feel like alignment, not because difficulty disappears, but because inconsistency loses its influence. You stop asking whether you feel like acting rightly and start acting rightly as a matter of identity. This is the result of sustained practice, not sudden transformation. As you move through your days, remember that consistency is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary choices repeated without collapse. Speaking truthfully when silence would be easier, continuing work when distraction tempts you, remaining patient when irritation rises, choosing restraint when impulse pushes forward. These are the quiet points where your life is either unified or divided. Let your morning begin with clarity that virtue is the only true guide worth following. Let your day proceed with vigilance over shifting impulses. Let your evening conclude with honest examination and correction. Let every action be measured not by mood but by principle. In this steady rhythm, inconsistency gradually loses its hold, and what remains is a life no longer shaped by fluctuation, but by deliberate and unwavering alignment with what reason has already recognized as good.